Lamar Jackson is being criticized for his role in the Ravens' Week 3 loss to the Lions on Monday Night Football, even by ex-players. But in reality, that's not really the whole story. We talk about that and so much more coming up on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Ostreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for being here today on this Tuesday edition, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. And thank you out there to all the everydayers, the first-time listeners. If you're somewhere in the middle, thank you as well. Unfortunately, not a victory Tuesday for the Ravens as they lose in embarrassing fashion, 38-30 to the Lions in Week 3. They dropped to 1-2, and we have a jam-packed episode today, kind of breaking everything down. And in the first part of the show, we're going to talk about Lamar Jackson being heavily criticized for his role in the Ravens' loss to the Lions and why I don't really think that tells the whole story. And there are a lot of other parts in that are being left out by people, including some ex-NFL players. So we'll talk about that in the first part of the show. Then in the second part of the show, Ryan Clark, he just eviscerated John Harbaugh and the Ravens and the messaging that's kind of going on in the locker room right now, it feels like, and even some of the messaging John Harbaugh has put forward here. And in the final part of the show, let's dive into some general notes from the game, how it all went wrong, and the whole 9 yards there. So a disappointing night last night, but we're going to try to make as much sense of it as we can here, especially the morning after the game. Want to tell everyone that today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Let's just dive right into it here. And again, I talked about this on the watch along we did last night. We do watch alongs for every single Ravens game live, every single play. We react. I even said it on the instant reaction show and the Locked On Ravens squad show after that. Lamar Jackson in this game, there's a lot of context that's required behind his role. Now, let's just start with the pure box score stats. All right, let's just start there. Lamar on the night was 21-27 for 288 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and an 148.1 passer rating. Did Lamar play perfectly in this game? Absolutely not, right? There were certain moments, Brian Branch dropped an interception and there was a miscommunication on a couple throws. But for the most part, I thought Lamar Jackson played pretty well overall. Like, I thought it was a good game for Lamar. But the big conversation point has been the sacks, all right? The sacks. And they should be 7 sacks for this Ravens offense, is absolutely embarrassing, inexcusable. And obviously the offensive line was getting pushed around all night, multiple different instances. Roger Rosengarten, and again, the stats and the grades and all that haven't come out at the time I'm recording this for the offensive line, but I didn't think Roger Rosengarten played well. Ronnie Stanley got beat on a couple plays. Daniel Falele and Andrew Voorhees got beat on plays as well. Linderbaum had some moments. But what puts this all into context for me, PFF has charted that the Ravens, and I can't even believe this is a real stat. I legitimately cannot believe it. 30 pressures, 30, not 13, 30 pressures. That's the amount the Ravens gave up to the Lions. The Lions generated 30 pressures on Lamar Jackson. That is inexcusable. That is unbelievable. And it is honestly disgusting. Like, what does Lamar have to do in those situations? What can he do in those situations? He has masked offensive line weaknesses for years, and 30 pressures puts into context just how much he was dealing with. Now, the criticism for Lamar has come in the fact that he held onto the ball for too long in certain spots, which, yes, for a sack or two, I went back and watched the game back. In a sack or two, he did maybe hold on to the ball for a little bit too long. He should have thrown the ball away or maybe checked it down somewhere, gotten the ball out a little bit early, which is that in itself is valid. But that criticism, I think, at least from what I've seen, has gone pretty far. And Chad Johnson, Shannon Sharpe, they have the nightcap. They reacted to the game after the fact. And Chad Johnson said, Lamar Jackson holding on to the ball a little bit too long, trying to make plays down the field. That clock's got to go off in your head. You've got to know when to go. If you're not going to go, if you're not going to take off, throw the ball out of bounds so you live to see another play, you live to see another down. And that to me is like, fine, yes, sure. You can go out there and on a play or two, you can say, yeah, that was probably something where Lamar should have done something a little bit different. But the pressure was in his face all night. But then Chad Johnson says, but you're putting your team in unfortunate circumstances. You're going from 1st and 10 to 2nd and 18, from 2nd and 18 to 3rd and 20 something. There aren't many plays you can run from that point, and so you lose an offensive series. I mean, it's not me trying to I'm just going to take this out and talk about this, but it's the offensive line, in my opinion, putting Lamar Jackson in unfortunate circumstances. Lamar even has to kind of deal with that. And the Lions were winning very quickly last night. And the issue is that the Lions were also winning with all different types of looks. And even late in the game, and Lamar Jackson talked about this after the game, the Lions were essentially at the end of the game just rushing 3 guys. And they were sometimes 4, and they were having a spy. Some of the best spy work I've ever seen on Lamar Jackson, by the way. The Lions spies, they knew exactly what they were looking for. But Lamar talked about how they were doing stunts. They had the spy was grabbing his leg, and it is what it was. They were dropping into coverage, had 3 safeties back there. So he said he's not going to just throw a Hail Mary ball. He's going to read the coverage out and try to make something happen. Lamar Jackson has made a billion plays with his legs trying to make something happen, evading sacks, running out, not throwing the ball away. At times, and I've talked about this, if you've been listening to me on Locked On Ravens, I've talked about this for years. Lamar struggled at points earlier in his career with not just taking the short stuff, right? Not taking the short stuff. And, I had said, hey, that's something Lamar can improve on. He's still young, and he's certainly 100%. It's night and day. But it's also about, can you, as an offensive coordinator, as a coaching staff, scheme guys open for Lamar to have that safety outlet and safety valve. Now, Chad Johnson then also went on to say, hey, the rest of the year, those aren't going to be sacks, talking about how Lamar's made those plays before. But then Shannon Sharpe, he made the point, Lamar's mom last year, right? When Lamar was taking those sacks, he said, what did his mom say? Run the ball. And Shannon said sometimes he gets caught up. Yeah, we know you can throw the football, but they're dropping 7 in coverage. And again, I get it. I understand it. And I even said on the watch along, I said, yeah, in some moments, Lamar should have probably thrown the ball away. That's valid criticism. It's fair criticism. And look, it's okay to say, hey, Lamar didn't do this well or that well in this game. It doesn't take away that Lamar, again, overall played well. Doesn't take away Lamar is, in my opinion, the best quarterback in the league, but not even Lamar Jackson is perfect. Lamar Jackson makes mistakes. And my goal here on the show is to be as fair and as just as I can. And look, there's plenty we can talk about with Lamar in terms of what he did well in the game. He and Rashad Bateman had a clutch connection all the way through the game. Mark Andrews gets involved. He and Mark seem to get things back. He was escaping pressure and making things happen at points. All the points, I guess, are legitimate when it comes to the general points that are being made. But I don't think it's Lamar putting the Ravens in unfortunate circumstances here. I think it's the offensive line putting Lamar in unfortunate circumstances, which then puts the team in unfortunate circumstances, because literally 30 pressures is, I will say it again, 30 pressures is a disgusting number. It is a disgusting number, regardless of how you spin it, regardless of who was at fault, regardless of which offensive lineman lost. Tight ends were losing too. It wasn't just offensive line. Charlie Kohler was missing on some plays. Mark Andrews had a play where a guy got by him. It is what it is. But Lamar was facing pressure all night, still went 21 of 29. And that to me is an important context. Or 21 and 27, excuse me. But still, I just don't want it to be the narrative. And I certainly saw the narrative on social media that Lamar Jackson is all to blame for all of these sacks. He's the one running into this, running into that. And some of them, too, were just Lamar trying to tuck the ball and run, eventually pulling the ball down. But a Lions defender just got there too quickly. The spy work I said was really good on Lamar. It's just that the pressure, there's so much Lamar has masked over the course of his career, with him being a elevator, with him being able to go out there and make something out of nothing. But at some point, you just kind of have to address that the offensive line play hasn't been good for 3 straight weeks. And Lamar still is out there without an interception, although, he did make a throw that was almost intercepted by Brian Branch, and the Ravens got lucky there. Lamar got lucky there. But I don't want it to become a thing here where, oh, well, look, Lamar had a couple of moments where he could have done something better, so let's blame it all on Lamar Jackson, right? That is not what I want to see. It's okay to say Lamar needs to do something a little better here or there or whenever, right? That's okay. Lamar will be the first person to tell you he's not perfect. Lamar is totally okay with saying, hey, I need to get better here. I need to do this a little bit better there, right? Lamar does that all the time, so it's okay. He knows, everybody knows that nobody is perfect. But the offensive line is a huge problem. I mean, it is. We can just straight up say it. 3 weeks, there's still a lot of time to go. But through 3 weeks, the offensive line, I just can't get over that number. 30 pressures. 30 pressures. It's inexcusable. It's unacceptable. And when there's so much pressure in your face all night, yeah, you're probably going to make a couple mistakes. You're probably going to want to try to do something for your team. You're probably going to want to, especially as that game slips away late in the game, try to make some plays. But when guys are winning that quickly, when guys are looking that good on the defensive side of the ball on that front for the Lions, man, it's tough in those circumstances. So it's not an excuse for Lamar to say, hey, Lamar didn't do anything wrong or Lamar was perfect in this game. No, I don't think he necessarily was, but this was still a very solid game for Lamar. Again, he had the 148.1 pass rating, and that doesn't necessarily directly correlate, but it certainly is an indication. And plus, only 6 incompletions on the night. Now, again, yes, 7 sacks do not pop up on like the pure quarterback box score sheet there, but he also had 7 carries for 35 yards on those plays, and he had to tuck and run and scramble and do the whole 9 there. But again, Lamar Jackson, even though it wasn't like the best game I've ever seen from Lamar, he is very far down on that totem pole, is the reason the Ravens lost this game. And I don't think he was the reason why the Ravens were in these unfortunate circumstances. I just do not. I don't think it was Lamar. Guys can have bad plays or bad moments and not be a reason that a team's in an unfortunate circumstance. You know who does put the team in an unfortunate circumstance? The unit or players that consistently contribute to that. That was not Lamar Jackson last night. That to me was the offensive line and the defense and some of the coaching decisions. A lot. Lamar, certainly, sure, you can blame a little bit, but I'm not even putting him in that conversation, if we're being honest. I'm seeing him put too much in that conversation. So again, the points that Chad Johnson, Shannon Sharpe made here, in general, they are not wrong. And I agree with the fact that, yeah, on a couple of plays, he probably held the ball for a little too long, which is fine. He was trying to make something happen. And usually in a lot of moments, he does make something happen. But the narrative does not need to flip to unfortunate circumstances. That's what I'm trying to say on that. And it's something we'll probably see throughout the week. And that is, I'll say the word again, unfortunate. So coming up in the second part of the show, Ryan Clark eviscerated John Harbaugh and the Baltimore Ravens for their performance in this game against the Lions, as well as, well, some of the messaging that's going on with the Ravens right now. So stay tuned. A lot coming up on the show. First, the show is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5-Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. What I love most is how portable they are. Big taste, tiny shot. You can take it anywhere and get that boost when you need it. Now, for me, I always reach for my favorite flavor. That's berry for me because it's refreshing and gives me that quick lift before a busy day. And for me, I love reaching for a 5-Hour Energy shot because of that portability, that size. Plus, you feel it very fast. And I love how fast it kicks in and that it's sugar-free. So I don't have to worry about crashing later. Enough with boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5-Hour Energy shots. Get the favorites you love or be bold and try something new in store and online at www.5hourenergy.com or Amazon today. Continuing on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still here with you on this unfortunate not-so victory Tuesday for the Ravens. They fall to 1-2 after a 38-30 loss to the Detroit Lions. Now, I wanted to dive into what Ryan Clark had to say about John Harbaugh and the Ravens. I think it's a very important message personally here. Now, before I do that, I do want to remind everyone, again, this is a 5-day-a-week Ravens podcast. So Monday through Friday, we have you covered, daily Ravens content and coverage. Hit that like and subscribe button in video form. Follow along in audio form and video form. We're actually almost 250 subscribers away at the time of this recording from 15,000 subscribers, which is a huge milestone for me in audio form. Continuing to build that up. We have a ton of great audio listeners as well. So thank you for all the support. But let's talk about that message now. Now, Ryan Clark, after the game, He sent a message that I think is very important. I want to read this off here. He said, quote, "We all picked the Ravens. I heard an interview that John Harbaugh did at the beginning of the season, and he said people who are saying Super Bowl or bust are silly, but we're not, because that should be the sense of urgency in this locker room when you have one of the best players in the game, when you have a stacked roster. You should be focused on the minute details that win you championships. We didn't see that tonight. You know who we saw it from? The Detroit Lions. The Baltimore Ravens, even though their roster says championship, right now, their execution says home in the wild card round, home in the divisional playoff. What I've seen tonight is a difference in two teams who are squeezing and straining to win football games. Lions believe that this is their year. The Ravens right now are 1-2 football teams that have only beaten the Browns. That's a mic drop right there from Ryan Clark on the Ravens and John Harbaugh. And look, I agree. The Super Bowl or bust thing with Harbaugh was weird when he said that, if we're being honest. Like, it just was. It's clear as day to anybody who watches this team, who's a fan of this team, who covers this team, that the Ravens have Super Bowl or bust expectations, right? Especially when Lamar Jackson has been in the league for as long as he has, when you have the roster that you have. I mean, Ryan Clark made all great points there. And this is where it kind of comes into like the blame game situation. We talked about it in the first part of the show with Lamar. You know, oh, is it Lamar? Is it the offensive line? Is it the defense? Is it the coaching? It's a little bit of everything, right? Like, everybody has a part to play. I've said that for years here on this show. Everybody has a part to play. But they all have a collective goal. Who gets a bigger piece of the blame pie and whatnot? Again, those conversations, that's different. But the goal is winning a Super Bowl. That's the goal every single season when you have a roster like this, when you have a team like this, when you have a quarterback like this. And it's not just like 1-2, they're in the same exact spot they were last season. They just got there differently. Now you have to avoid going to 1-3. That is a horrible spot to be. And one of the Chiefs or the Ravens are going to be that, by the way. But you're not putting yourself in a winning situation because, one, you know, whether it's the offensive line not blocking for Lamar, whether it's Lamar holding onto the ball, whether it's the defense not being able to tackle, whether it's, you know, guys dropping passes or, you know, coaches calling the wrong plays, like, that is situations that are not working. But it's also about the messaging, right? The messaging should be, hey, we're going all in. This is the Super Bowl. This is what we're doing. But then John Harbaugh goes and says, actually, that's kind of silly. I don't really believe in that. And I'm obviously paraphrasing in that, but that was the message that was being sent. That message, like, that's not what you go out there and say. I mean, it is Super Bowl or bust. It 100% is. And you kind of saw, like, late in this game, the Ravens, I don't want to say gave up because I don't think that they did, but you could see how dejected they were. There's clearly disconnect at some level with Lamar Jackson right now. And I'm not talking about Lamar in that sense. I'm talking about, like, Lamar was just frustrated for this entire game. I don't know if it was about the coaching staff or, you know, he was frustrated with his own player, some of the miscommunications that were going on, but, like, something clearly is not right. I don't know how big it is. I don't know what it is, but, you know, this is a 1-2 football team that, you know, ideally through their first 3 games, there was a shot this would happen, but this was the worst case scenario, not named losing to the Cleveland Browns. And now you have to go to Arrowhead and play Kansas City when there's just so much dejectedness and so much like, we have to figure it out. We have to do this. We have to do that. And Lamar talked about this too. And I thought this was this is what I've been talking about. And I'm glad Lamar said this, where he was asked if the loss serves as a wake-up call for the team. And Lamar said, quote, "I feel like week 1 was a wake-up call, not just this loss. Week 1 was a wake-up call. Last week was a wake-up call because we started off slow last week. We got beat tonight. Lions had a great game plan. I feel like offense and defense for those guys played great. We just have to find a way to win." It just seems like it's the same message in these spots over and over again. And look, I will say this. Football teams, I'm not expecting football teams to be a perfect 17-0 at the end of the season. I'm not expecting everything to go right for every single football team, which is why I think it's again, ridiculous going back to the first part of the show. They were kind of playing this blame game with Lamar Jackson, and we're saying, oh, well, he did a couple things wrong, so now it's all his fault. That to me, and again, I've seen that on social media and you know, the comment from Chad Johnson about Lamar putting the team in unfortunate circumstances. And again, just to go briefly back to that, I don't think Chad Johnson meant that in a, like, mean way or in a way that was, oh, Lamar, like, I blame Lamar for this loss. That was not what he was saying. Like, he was just saying, well, yes, Lamar is a big reason why they were in that spot. in those second and long, third and long situations because he was the one who didn't throw the ball away instead of, hey, Lamar didn't throw the ball away on some plays, but hey, also that offensive line, man, what's going on over there? And just for the record, Shannon and Chad have been very critical of Daniel Faalele and the Ravens offensive line in the past, but I thought it was important context in those moments. But it's just the messaging that goes on with the team in general right now. It just feels like it's off. And, the players are saying the right things. Coaches, for the most part, most coaches are saying the right things. At points, John Harbaugh has some answers, and I'm kind of just like, I understand the point, but it's not what everybody needs to hear right now. And, it feels like a mess. It feels like a mess. And again, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And that feels like what the Ravens are doing here. But it all starts at the top, in my opinion, here, right? The messaging from the top down all the time, right? No slip ups. All the time has to be, hey, we're going for it this year. And I think Ryan Clark makes a good point where, yeah, you know what? The Lions had a really bad start to their season in week 1, but they are playing like a team that wants to right those wrongs. And the Ravens, they're just, they haven't really addressed a lot of their issues, which is a difficult situation to be in. So coming up with the final part of the show, we'll talk about just some Ravens and Lions notes. That defense was very bad. That pass rush is very concerning. Stay tuned. A lot to get to on the show. First, the show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel's making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if a bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet, player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. Makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. On FanDuel, maybe you picked Mark Andrews to go for 2+ touchdowns or Rashad Bateman to go for an anytime touchdown. Those, if you did that over on FanDuel, you are living large because they delivered for it in a big way. Even the Derrick Henry anytime touchdown, that was one early in the game that was able to be very good, and that was all good pretty early. You didn't have to worry about that one. Didn't have to sweat that one. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Continuing on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still here with you on Tuesday. Ravens lose the Lions 38-30. Disappointing all the way around. Appreciate everybody for being here, especially after a loss. I know it's tough to consume content after your team loses. It's tough to talk about it, right? But we're here. We're talking about it. We got to talk about it because the Ravens have to improve from it. So thank you. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe button, video form and audio form. Again, 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage and content. Be sure to tell a friend, tell the family member we're here for them, just like we're here for you on Locked On Ravens. And also be sure that you follow me on Twitter, social media, obviously Instagram, TikTok as well. Oestreicher34 is where you can do that. Now, who wants to talk about some stats from the Lions game and the Ravens game? Yay. Yeah. Well, let's do it. We talked about Lamar. We talked about him through the air and on the ground. Derrick Henry, 12 for 50 and a touchdown, but he also had that fumble, which was just absolutely backbreaking for the Ravens. Henry had 3 fumbles all of last year for the Ravens. He has 3 fumbles in 3 games this year. It is time to talk about that ball security. It is an issue. Henry said he's going to work on it. He was clearly dejected. He was beside himself on the sideline. He's fumbled in 2 highly critical moments in 3 games so far, and that has played a big part in the Ravens losing. So that's unfortunate. Mark Andrews and Rashad Bateman, really big games for them. Really glad to see them step up. 6 for 91 and 2 touchdowns for Mark on 6 targets. Bateman had 5 catches for 63 yards and a score for him, just clutch all the way through. Zay Flowers, only 2 catches for 13 yards. So, Zay was open certainly on some plays, but we saw the Lions kind of key on him a little bit. So we will see what happens there moving forward. Isaiah likely coming back hopefully in week 4 will definitely help with that. Defensively. Oh boy. Here we go. I don't want to say this stat because it's so disgusting again. I needed to spread out the disgusting stats we talk about in this game. Obviously the first segment was about the offensive line, 30 pressures. Still can't believe that. That was according to PFF. Now, according to Next Gen Stats, the Ravens had 20 missed tackles in this game. 20. Feels like we're back in 2021 with that issue. The Ravens as a whole allowed the Lions to rush for 224 yards on the day. 5.9 yards per carry. Amon-Ra St. Brown as a receiver went 7 for 77 in a score. The play calling was off for both Zach Orr and Todd Monken. It got way, way, way too cute, especially for Todd Monken. He had that Derrick Henry throw play where I was getting James Prochet flashbacks. I said that all last night as it happened live. I was freaking out, but he passed that ball, throws it almost an interception. Zach Orr was playing too soft in certain spots, and the blitzes were untimely. But the real problem here is the pass rush for the defense. The pass rush is just absolutely non-existent. No Nnamdi Madubuike. We didn't get an update from John Harbaugh on him, so we don't know what's going on there. And even with Madubuike and Van Noy, the pass rush wasn't really great to begin with. But the thing with the Lions, and this is what we were talking about in the first part of the show, right, where the Lions were getting pressure when blitzing. They were getting pressure when just sending 4 or 3 and using a spy. They were dropping their safeties back. They were still getting pressure all the time. The Ravens couldn't get anything. 7 sacks for the Lions, or for the Lions on Lamar Jackson. 0 sacks for the Ravens on Jared Goff. 0. That you can't have that. Jared Goff picked them apart all night. He was able to make throws from the pocket, not feeling a lot of pressure. He went 20-28 for 202 and a touchdown. He didn't feel any pressure, barely anything. And that's a huge problem because, like, as I mentioned, the pass rush has not been good all season to start. Yes, you're only 3 weeks in, but we are 1 week away from it being a month into the season, and that's a trend. That is a trend. So I don't know if Eric DeCosta is going to make a move, try to find someone. It probably depends on Nnamdi Madubuike's status, if he's healthy or not, if he's going to be able to play again this season or not. We just don't know what's going on with him. Hopefully he'll be back next week, but I don't know. I truly do not know. So the pass rush was just non-existent. John Jenkins, in my opinion, was their best defensive player. Roquan Smith, rough game from him. Marlon Humphrey, rough game from him. You know, Zach Orr was like dropping Mike Green back into coverage in this game, which was really weird. It was just a weird game. And the issue was the Lions gave the Ravens multiple opportunities to go and win this game. Well, maybe not win, but at least stay in it, where they had that weird, and again, Todd Monken getting too cute on a 4th down play with Derrick Henry. Lamar holds the ball, fumbles, the Lions get the ball. Awful clock management by Detroit. And then the Ravens get the ball back. They score. So the Lions give them a gift score at the end of the half. And then the Ravens come out, score again, take the lead at the beginning of the 3rd quarter. And you're feeling good, and then the momentum just started to shift down from there. They didn't use Justice Hill. Keaton Mitchell wasn't active. I still don't agree with that decision. We saw firsthand what having a great 1-2 punch of running back can do. David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs tore up that Ravens defense, and it was like, I don't recognize this team. I don't recognize this defense. And the problem is, or at least the unfortunate thing, is that they talked all offseason about the fact, like Marlon Humphrey, for example, talked all offseason about the fact that, they want to get back to that 2000s defense standard. Man, I don't know what the worst defense in Ravens history was, but maybe it's this one right now. And that's crazy because the roster is so good, on paper, but that's why you play the games. And it just feels like the Lions, credit to them. This was a game where the Lions beat the Ravens, right? The Ravens didn't beat themselves. I mean, I guess in ways they did, but the Lions were straight up just the better team. They were straight up the better team. It is what it is. That, to me, and that's what the shock was for a lot of people, is that the Lions just came in, they out-physicaled the Ravens, they dominated the Ravens at line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. And, that's the storyline here. That's the big storyline. It's not Lamar Jackson holding on to the ball for too long on 2 plays or something. It's the Ravens got bullied up front, and they continue to get bullied up front. And now they might not have their best pass rusher for who knows how long, because we're not getting updates. So it's a tough situation to be in. It's still early enough in the season where you can clearly and easily turn it around, but you've now dug yourself a hole like this for the 2nd year in a row. And that, to me, is not great, not okay. Other team stats, the Ravens, it was a pretty non-sloppy game penalty-wise. They only had 3 penalties for 10 yards in this game, but all across the board, I mean, Lions went 7 of 14 on 3rd down. Ravens were actually better percentage-wise. They went 6 of 11. But the issue is that the Ravens, they lost in the 1st down department 24-21. They lost in the total yard department 426-318. Rushing department 224-85. Time of possession was big early, but the Lions, I mean, this defense got walked down multiple times from 90 plus yards, 98 and 96 yards for that Lions offense. First time that a team has done that once in Baltimore since 2001. So 25 years essentially. Like, that is unbelievable. Unbelievable. So look, you have a stat here. The Ravens have scored 111 points this season, the most through 3 games by a team with a losing record in NFL history. The Ravens defense is now tied for giving up the most points in the NFL, along with the Miami Dolphins at 97. And it just feels like there is a lot of soul searching that this team has to do. So that's all I have here today on Locked On Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. We'll be back here tomorrow talking more Ravens football. So be sure to hit the like and subscribe button in video form, follow along in audio form, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.